Good morning. My name is Connor Ward. I'm an account executive here at Beck Technology. Really excited to welcome Taimoor Khan to this month's webinar. Taimoor is currently the Director of Pre-Construction at ERDMAN. We've been in connection with Taimoor since his time at Clark Construction. Taimoor, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Just real quick, do you want to start off by just giving a little bit of background about yourself?
Yes, so I'm the Director of Preconstruction currently at ERDMAN Construction, and ERDMAN basically specializes in an integrated project delivery for healthcare projects mostly. So it involves clinics, hospitals, surgery centers, and also now we're getting into senior living too. So it's been I've been with ERDMAN for the last 9-10 months now, and we implemented Estimator recently in the company. So
awesome. And so you just recently implemented us. I know you've used us previously before. When did you first hear about Beck Technology?
So my first exposure to Beck Technology was back in 2008 and 9, I believe, around that time, at one of my previous companies where I was introduced to actually D-Profiler. It used to be called D-Profiler, now it's called DESTINI Profiler. And I really liked the software, especially because I was always interested in the 3D BIM stuff. And I used to build models in that software. But I really didn't do anything with the cost estimating part of it. So we were probably more using it for just presentation purpose, and we'll just create a conceptual model. And after a few years, when I started working for another company, I realized that I was not really using the actual strength of that software, which is the conceptual estimating. And I started getting into it, and it was a learning curve, but after a year or 2 years, I was using Profiler for almost every project. And it actually helped me a lot with my skills. Then in 2016, I believe, when 2015 or 2016, around that time when Beck came with Estimator, I got a free license for a year, and I thought I would try it out and see how it works. And the more I started using it, and in the beginning it was, it came with a lot of basic functionality. It didn't have an integrated takeoff, but down the road they started developing those things. And the more I started using it, the more I enjoyed it. And also all the features that it came with the time, all of them were actually making my work more efficient and more productive. Also, there's a seamless process from moving the information from a conceptual estimate to the detailed estimate, from Profiler to Estimator. So that's another big, strong point that I liked about it. So I had a pretty nice journey so far with Beck.
Yeah, I mean, we've been with you for a while now. What's been the main reason for staying with us for as long as you have? I know you've been a Profiler user and then you switched to Estimator, but what was the main reason for maintaining that close relationship?
Yeah. So one of the biggest thing that I like about Beck Technology is their customer service and the vision, because they like to keep innovating and they have a vision to keep growing the technology of their software. And at the same time, they have the best customer service. So every time I had a question, even when I was learning Profiler, if I would get stuck during my work, I would just call, and somebody from Beck Technology will pick up the phone and they will help me out right away. And that was my biggest, thing that I liked about Beck Technology, that relationship that I built with Beck Technology was the customer service. They listen to you and then they keep innovating. So it's not like any other software that they give you out-of-box software and say, you know what, that it is what it is, and that's it. With Beck, every few months I see new features getting added, and that's based on the customer's feedback. So again, that's something that I really admire about Beck Technology.
Yeah, appreciate you saying that. I'm glad that our goals align with yours and also our other partners. Bringing in a new software, you've gone to a couple different places and you've brought Estimator Profiler with you. With your latest experience being at ERDMAN, what was it like bringing in new software to your company? What was that experience like for you and your team?
So two of the main hurdles that I always face when you're trying to bring new software to the company is one is the change, and the second is the investment. So if you can convince your team that this change will be helpful in improving their work process and they make them more efficient, then they will be all up for that change. The second thing is the investment. So you have to convince your upper management that the money that you will be investing in this new technology, actually you will cut down all the hours that they will be spending extra on using probably other ways of estimating. So once they are convinced, then it's easier to implement it and bring the software to the company.
Yeah, and convincing people on your team, usually that means solving some of the, I guess, quote unquote, pain or challenges that they're currently dealing with. Did you feel like the pain and challenges were the same for each precon group that you've been at? And also, what were those challenges?
So one of the things that I have noticed when you try to bring any new technology, it has to be user-friendly. Because when you're dealing with a group of estimators or precon department, there's going to be people who love technology and there's going to be people who doesn't love technology. Some people have an aptitude of picking the technological stuff much quicker than other people. So you cannot really push people to something that basically you are comfortable with. So if it's not user friendly, then it's going to be a big problem to implement it across the board. Now, the good thing about with Beck Technology products, especially with Estimator, it's very user friendly. So it doesn't take too long to train people. I haven't really gone through an official training with Beck Technology, and I was able to, when I started using Estimator, I didn't go through an actual official training, and I learned everything by myself. So every time I'll get stuck somewhere, I will call somebody and they will help me. But again, it didn't take me too much to learn the basics of the software. Same thing when I was training my team. So far, I have actually just taught them the software, and we haven't actually used the official training yet. So it's the user-friendly aspect of it made my life easier in convincing my team that this is the solution that we need to go with.
Good. Glad to hear it. Do you feel like, some of those challenges you talked about, whether it's, the time aspect of going through an estimator, maybe an estimator is a little bit more old school, they don't want to see new technology. Do you feel like you were able to overcome those challenges through our, was it through our process of coming out to you all and sitting down with you all and walking through the software? When do you ultimately feel like you're able to overcome those challenges and everyone in the group and everyone in the company was okay with moving forward and partnering with Beck Technology?
Yes. So first you have to identify the problem and then you provide the solution for it, right? So currently the way our estimating group was working was they were using an on-center on-screen takeoff program for takeoffs, and then they will use MC2 for putting all this data into the estimating software. So you're using two different tools. So you're doing takeoff in one software, then you're manually inserting those values in another estimating software. So there's a big chance either you will mistype something or miss some line items, and the process will take up to, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks to finish an estimate, right? With DESTINI Estimator, when everything is integrated, you have a takeoff program within the software, and you can actually integrate the line items with the takeoff. And if you work with assemblies, there's a rare chance that you will miss something. And it cuts off your time of doing an estimate from 2 weeks to maybe 1 week or 1.5 weeks. So there's a time saving. Also, there's a lot of other features that comes with the software that especially a lot of clients require to have it estimated in a certain breakdowns. And Estimator lets you do those breakdowns very quickly with their WBS properties versus any other software, or even especially with Excel. It is hard to turn around that information quickly. So again, when your team sees the value in it, then they're all convinced that, you know, it will save us time. It will make our life easier. We don't have to work 10 and 12 hours a day. We can just finish things with 8 hours or, you know, less than a day.
It's awesome. Glad to hear that. So, would you say the total, I guess, the impact of having an integrated solution, is it just time saving, or what's the overall impact for you and your team?
It's not only the time saving, it makes you more efficient, of course, and also you are reducing the risk of missing something in your estimate. So you are also improving the accuracy of your estimates too. It's not about just the time saving, but the quality of the estimate should go up too. So that goes hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to hear it. Well, you know, you've been with us for a while now, and we obviously really appreciate that. And you know where we're at, you know, today. But where do you see technology in the pre-construction? I guess where do you see technology going for pre-construction teams within the next 10 years, and where do you hope that it will?
So the way I see it is like currently when we do takeoff and then we attach a line item to it, I would see this growing into more of a preloaded items in there. So as soon as you draw something, it actually builds the estimate for you. And that will go both for not only 2D, but also for the BIM model too. So I would expect that there would be some sort of integration between a Revit model and the estimating software, where the architects start building the model, the components are already preloaded with cost, that as you build a model, it basically builds up your estimate. And then of course you can do fine tweaking, but you know, something that maybe probably will take 2 weeks now probably will cut down to maybe a day or two. So the efficiency will go up by improving that process.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Awesome. Well, Taimoor, thanks for answering some of these questions. We've actually had a couple clients, they've sent in some questions, so I want to relay those and hear your thoughts on those. We have from Beckenhauer, we have, how do you strike a balance between the ideal solution, which may require a significant amount of change in thinking, and meeting the team where they are right now?
So ideal solution, every company could have a different ideal solution. It depends on how your company model works. So every company has a different business model. Like, you know, some companies are more CM centric. Some companies are having some of their self-performed groups. Some companies purely do more conceptual estimating. So every company has a different way of working things. So that's why ideal solution for each company could be totally different, you know. And that's how you actually, what you call tailor your approach, how you are going to use the tool.
Awesome, appreciate it. From Playco, how are you able to onboard your team, especially with you being sometimes in a different location than your actual team? What was your strategy behind onboarding those members, and how are you able to keep up with their progress as they are getting onboarded?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I actually work from a single office, and we work in different locations all over the country. So we don't have multiple offices, but we still do projects in different locations. So there's two ways of approaching it. If you have an office in a certain region and that's where you work, you will need to have a separate database for that. But if you're working from one office, but you're working in different locations as far as project wise, then you just need to manage one database. Otherwise, it will be too much work for you to maintain databases for a place where you may be just doing one project, maybe, and then after a few years you may do another one. But if there are people who have regional offices that office deals with the project in that specific region, I would strongly recommend to have each office a separate database. But again, if you're managing multiple projects from one office, then you don't need to have multiple databases. But you need to have a good knowledge of that market, because a lot of your unit prices are driven by the market.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And it's definitely an approach that we've seen be successful with a lot of our partners. From Turner Construction, curve of estimators. So switching from one platform, MC2, like you just did, to DESTINI Estimator. What were the advantages, and what was the learning curve like for you and your team?
Okay, so MC Square, of course, was a very good software for the last couple decades, I believe, and it has some nice features, and I believe there's a lot of good things from MC Square I see in Estimator too. But Estimator took it to the next level where it made more presentable to the clients too. So, especially when you are doing comparisons between the estimates, it has a pretty nice graphic way of showing those different changes. And also you can go into the detail of each item and see what actually changed. So I believe the clients are getting more sophisticated. So they like to see the more transparent information, and that's why it's easier to present your estimate right to the client with this estimator. And the second part of the question is that how long does it take to actually train your people? Now, again, it comes back to first of all, you have to convince your team that what is the benefit of this change. Once they are convinced, then you start the process of training them. I would say that you start with basic things. You go step by step. So first of all, the way I approach even when I started learning the software, I started with basics. So I just started with the estimator, how to put estimate into estimator. I didn't touch the takeoff part of it. So once I got familiar with how to put an estimate together in the estimator, then I went to the second part. I said, okay, how do we do takeoff? Then I started doing that takeoff part. Then I said, okay, how I do integrate the takeoff line items with the estimate. So the more you go step by step, it's easier to digest that information. And this is how I took my team so far. So I started with the basics, and now I put them into actual projects. You need to work on an actual project in order to actually get familiar with the software more. If you keep doing the test projects, it will never happen for you. So you need to really take the courage and use it on an actual project, because then you are under pressure that you don't have a choice but actually learn it properly.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's always better, without dummy data and using live information and having it. So I agree.
So I would say that it will take probably a good few weeks to get them to the level where they can actually start on a real project. And then you, as a mentor, you need to just be available, whenever they get stuck anywhere in the estimate, you should be able to answer their questions, because they actually learn things more during the estimating process. So they will always get stuck, and then they will forget what you taught them, and then you tell them how you do it, and then they would never forget about it. So
definitely. And it actually kind of leads us to our next and our last question, which is from creative contractors, is how do you know, how are companies making sure they're providing enough training and adjustment for new software? So, you talked a little bit about the training, you talked about how to phase that in, but, in your experience, how much time are you devoting a week to your team to make sure they're getting ramped up in the way that you would like them to get ramped up in? And, what does that look like internally for you all?
So the way I have seen it, I've been using Estimator for a little over 2 years now, I would say. And with every estimate that I do in Estimator, I learn something new. So there will be some basic things that you will learn in the beginning from the training. And then as you start using the estimator on real projects and actual projects, you will find that you will learn something new and better way of doing things, even in the estimator. So last week I was spending some time in some of the project properties feature that estimator came up with, and I found some ways of actually expediting my work. So again, even after using it for 2.5 years, I still learn something new every other week when I use it on a real project. So you have to use it on a real project, and then you see, okay, well, I can do this way too, or I can do something like this way too. So now it's up to you how creative you can get. So the software gives you the capability, but now it's up to you at how creative you can get by using the tool.
Awesome. And one last question actually just popped in as we were just talking. Apologize. It's talking about just using this on a live project, and says, what gave you the courage to, instead of using this and doing just a trial, if you will, what gave you the courage to really take that next step, that next leap into using this on a real project, with real effects attached to doing a real project?
Well, you have to have that courage. So you have to be not afraid of making mistakes. The first time you will use the software, you will make some mistakes, and that is very normal and common. But you need to have somebody have a second set of eyes to go through your estimate and find the mistakes that you have made. So there will be some mistakes in the beginning. So do not get scared of making mistakes. If you get scared of making mistakes, then you will not learn something new. So I believe that making some mistakes will be part of that little training, but you shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. But again, there should be another second set of eyes who can actually evaluate where you made mistakes.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Taimoor, that's all the questions we have for today. As always, it's a pleasure getting to talk to you and catching up. So we really appreciate it.
Same here.
Awesome. Thanks, Taimoor. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.